Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode of Just Ball Things. Not doing his usual eyebrow things, but doing his shoulders things today is the J-Man, Jack Manuel, always with me. How are you, my dude?
Nets world, Nets level. Let's keep it positive, but we'll probably get a little negative at the start of this pod, so stick with us.
Yeah, some good and bad things, obviously, in the Nets world. We will discuss, I'm sure, at length. My name is Nick Busink, and, mate, can you tell by my backdrop that I did my laundry today?
You normally are pretty good with the backdrop. And,
it's been lazy of late. I've moved the position of the camera, so Space Jam is less in picture. To have a more front-on view, because I feel like the side-on view wasn't really doing it for the people. I mean, I have no feedback on this,
all the comments on YouTube have been saying we need front view.
I have no reason to change it, but maybe now comments will be had. I mean, I've got my shiny forehead going from my light. I'm just a mess, Jackie boy. Let's get into this pod, shall we? You can follow us on Twitter as always at the J-Man JBT or at JBT Nick. We're also closely affiliated with OTG Basketball. They've got an awesome podcast network, YouTube network, which I'm sure you're all catching us on, where you can keep up to date with all things NBA. Make sure you follow them on Twitter at OTG Basketball and on YouTube at OTG Basketball. Make sure you subscribe. Facebook.com/JustBallThings. You can find us there. Give us a like and a follow if that is your social of choice. And jbtpodcast@gmail.com. If you would prefer to email us in, that is where you can do so. All right, Jackie boy, we've got a jam-packed episode today because it's been 1 week of basketball and somehow we have more to talk about than when we have 2 weeks of basketball to recap. It has been a crazy week, so we'll start off here with the Busink Manuel scale. For those of you who are new, this is a JBT created scale that sums up how likely things are to happen in the NBA. We scale it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, or a straight-up fact. I still have to look at my notes for that because it confuses the shit out of even me. Good luck, ladies and gentlemen. All right, mate. We'll start off this Busink Manuel scale just to throw another spanner in the works with some Brooklyn bits. Ooh, yeah. Give me that sweet Brooklyn bits music. Jackie boy, it is all about Brooklyn in this episode. The Nets can win the championship without James Harden. Sorry, dramatic pause there,
Nick,
Jackie boy.
This is tough. By the time this comes out, we may have the results of the MRI. I discussed that at length with Nick. I've got people tagging me on Twitter, doctors tagging me on Twitter with their videos and all this sort of stuff. So I'm still processing it because throughout the game, just to give a personal perspective, it was 43 seconds into the game that James Harden injured his hamstring. It was almost reminiscent of the time where he re-aggravated it that first time. And people are sort of saying, it's a 2 to 3 week timeline. It could be even extended. The more that you re-injure the same sort of site, the injury site, the more likely you are to be out for an extended period. But in terms of Harden's absence and how it affects Brooklyn Nets postseason success, look, they played pretty goddamn well today against the Milwaukee Bucks, but I will also say that the Bucks weren't at their best and they weren't executing. And they weren't very well coached tonight either, so I expect a pretty big bounce back from them. It's been injuries aplenty across the entire postseason, which really, really sucks because if you had Denver with Jamal Murray right now, they're a championship threat. They still probably are.
They probably still are, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. And the Brooklyn Nets with James Harden, everyone's like, they're a cakewalk to now it's just like, well, are they? Mike James is going to give you what he does every single night. Blake's not going to give you a double-double every single night.
He gave you a lot. I mean,
he did.
30 minutes from the man. I was gonna comment on that. I'm like, who's playing Mike James for 30 goddamn minutes in a second round playoff game?
It's full credit to him and the Stay Ready squad on Brooklyn, and they're always really sort of willing to step up into when the role and the occasion calls for them. But look, I'll give it. Can they win the championship, Nick? Yeah, it's a fact because they still have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, two of the best, 5-10 best players that's still left in the season. And Kevin Durant Kevin Durant and his individual brilliance on both ends of the floor. He's playing amazing defense. Kyrie Irving today, his game against Milwaukee, I think is going to go to the wayside. I think that the leadership and composure and execution and feel for the game that he had today. Yes, he can create his own shot at will. He can be an ISO master, but his ability to get others involved, some of his. He had three, again, I said this on the buzz. He had three defenders launched towards him. He's like, all right, I'll cross you over. Bruce Brown's going to cut. I'll dump it off to him for a dunk. And that was one of my favorite Kyrie Irving plays of the season. And, he was pumped after it as well. He had the trailing three with the look away, sort of Dwayne Wade, LeBron-esque. So I still think that the Nets have the talent there. And look, if Jeff Green comes back in some semblance of, in any immediacy in the next game or two, and he's at least somewhat healthy, which I'm not totally confident of because the plantar fascia injury is also what, ailed Goran Dragic in the last postseason. He was really, really struggling too. But he was looking good on the bench. He was up and about, throwing a lot of celebrations and such. So, Nick, I got to give it close to a fact because it's Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving at the end of the day, and it's Joey goddamn buckets. And I think that you can't discount the talent there, and the fact that they've already shown that they can beat the Milwaukee Bucks and the Sixers. What's going to happen with Joel Embiid? If they can make the finals, it's anyone's game.
I think the injury-ravaged path of the NBA right now is probably favouring Brooklyn right now. Milwaukee Bucks
an extra superstar up their sleeve. They've got
exactly,
three of them. So
exactly. I mean, James Harden, as brilliant as he is, like a 2A or 2B, depending on how you want to rank Kyrie and him, but around on the same.
Nick, and I get their sort of the ranking in that sense. OTG Basketball put out, rank the players that are currently in this Milwaukee and Brooklyn series. A lot of people had James Harden number one, and I do understand that because I apologize for interrupting, but I just think Harden's ability to control the floor, and I've said this on plenty of buzz, and I've got a little bit of criticism for it occasionally about James Harden is the most important Brooklyn net, and Kevin Durant is the best Brooklyn net. But I like how Kyrie Irving sort of stepped into that role and sort of elevated his importance and control. If he can continue to do that while still being the wizard that he is when he has the basketball in his hands, like the under the basket finish that he had today was. He's gonna have maybe one of the best highlight reels we will ever see, and I'll probably watch it before I go to bed every single night, like I do to this day. And even if Jay-Z isn't watching when he's courtside, give me those tickets, Hove. I'll sit next to Beyonce for you, mate, if you're not watching. But yeah, I think that I understand why Harden's absence could be pretty pronounced for this Brooklyn Nets team, given the effect and control and the elevation that he gives to the rest of his teammates and the ability to run the second unit as well. I mean, James Harden against second unit basketball, he's going to cook. And,
yeah, that's right.
Hopefully it's back sooner rather than later, but we'll wait for those MRI results.
Well, the skill set that Kyrie Irving does sort of paper over the cracks that maybe James Harden exiting creates, because their skill set can be very similar. I'd say Harden is a much better and much more effective scorer than Irving, but I think Irving can pull the strings a little bit better than Harden. I would
argue the opposite. And
you reckon that that Irving's a better shot creator than...
Not a shot creator, well, individual shot creator.
Like an ISO sort of deal.
Yeah, he can just find any opening and use the glass at will, create off his handle. Like James Harden has a really strong handle as well, really, really tight. And I just think that Harden just has a better effect and a better control in terms of getting Clax lob dunks, getting Joe Harris open threes, getting Bruce Brown on the cut. Kyrie Irving did that really well tonight. He had 8 assists.
Yes, that's right.
If the team can pass the ball as well as they did tonight, the ball was fizzing around and it looked incredible. And they don't, get bogged down into isolation basketball, which is still good basketball for the Brooklyn Nets. I just think that in the absence of James Harden, it's going to take the team. And as good as the big three were in that first round matchup against Boston, Milwaukee's a different beast.
Yeah, for sure. What Kyrie can offer. Like I said, with Harden out there, it's not like his skill set is not irreplaceable with Irving. I mean, it's more of a blow if Durant goes out, because that is a skill set that is irreplaceable in this team.
Can't win without Kevin Durant.
Exactly.
I think you make a good point there, Nick. Bringing up Kevin Durant, the Nets might be able to win without James Harden, but they can't win without Kevin Durant. It's plain and simple.
So this is still a fact for me. They are still very much my tip to win the NBA Finals, especially now that the Lakers are not. 100% still. Embiid is a massive question mark. And I think will continue if he can play.
A slight meniscus tear.
I know, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter, Jack. These things have been plaguing his entire career, and we're talking about a quick turnaround on a even benign injury like this. It concerns me. Milwaukee Bucks probably that healthiest, but again today this series was touted as this could be the NBA Finals. This could be the best series of the playoffs, and a very good win from Brooklyn. Are you gonna get contributions like you did from Blake Griffin today? The guy was insane. Obviously, you get 30 minutes from Mike James. I don't know, 12 points, 30 minutes.
I really like Mike James' game, and
that's what I mean.
OTG Nick, my fellow co-host in the Brooklyn Buzz, he's going to be sending that apology letter when he heads to Game 2 at Barclays Center because he's thrown a lot of slander his way.
That's right.
But I guess in the grand scheme of things, Nick, the role players are always going to play a little bit better at home. I've always said that. I said that on the Buzz as well. So Game 2, it's going to be important to bank those wins if Harden does happen to be back, and it does only happen to be maybe a mild strain or not even that. He could be back by Game 2. I have no idea. Luckily, there is a couple of days off now between these series and between these games, so it'll be a wait and see proposition for the Brooklyn Nets and for the Brooklyn Nets fans.
For sure. Milwaukee really need to pick up their game on the three-point arc. I mean, like you said, the role players will tend to play better on the at home, although maybe it's been a little bit flipped this season with so many away wins.
Not the Mavs series, but in general, that's how the way that goes.
I don't think you're going to see Chris Middleton shoot 26% from the floor at home. Maybe. We'll see. There's just obviously there was a lot of flaws in Milwaukee's game today, and still only losing by 7-8 points.
But Nets also didn't play at their best either, Nick.
I agree. I agree. But I think the contributions from Blake Griffin aren't going to be there every week. Joe Harris had a great shooting game, but could have only took 11 shots. That could be bumped up again, and he could be even more of a threat in future games. There is obviously both two sides to this coin, but it's so evenly mashed. It's. I mean, this is going 7. I'm putting that down that this is going 7, and given the home win, it's just one game, but Brooklyn seemed to obviously the home advantage seemed to be important.
He's hoping, fingers and toes crossed for James Harden and his health, just for the sake of basketball. We're always big about having healthy basketball. As a player who is healthy, Nick, but the franchise maybe not.
Actually, I can probably I've got you linked the video of the actual of what happened, and it didn't seem too much, but hamstrings can be tricky. So I'll just I'll play it here and seem to. I don't know. So that was the play that it happened on, and it seemed to.
And it's very, very similar again to how he did it in the initial point. So not the best sign, but again, I'm not a doctor. I don't pertain to be. So
I've been there, man. I've hurt my hamstring playing basketball too, and I know that pain. It's not great. I'm still not okay, but I'm an old man.
You're not James Harden. In fact, James Harden's like older than you, dude. So
goddamn,
he's older than me.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm pretty sure he's 31.
So we should take him longer to recover.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers, toes, and everybody part crossed that by the time this is out and by the time this is on YouTube and all streaming platforms, that we do get some good news from the MRI. But it's not necessarily the best news in Portland right now, Nick. Damian Lillard. There's rumors about his departure. Terry Stotts is obviously making mutually parting ways as it always tends to be. So I put to you this, my friend. Damian Lillard needs to leave Portland to find success. I feel like I'm on First Take and I'm Molly Kerriman. I'm throwing it to Stephen A. Smith.
I mean, this is probably true. But we've seen...
Or I would say, like, CJ McCollum be traded for Tobias Harris or Chris Middleton, and the Blazers find something there. Because I honestly think that Yusuf Nurkic re-signing him, and he didn't seem very confident about his when he was sort of talking to the media, he was sort of saying, I'll let my agent Rich Paul sort of figure that out. And we know that Rich Paul and Clutch, the Clutch Sports Group, they generally like to get their players paid. Yep. So I don't know, given the parameters that they also have to pay Norman Powell as well. They're in a tricky situation in Portland, and I don't want to talk about Jason Kidd because I don't want to give any of that airtime. I want to focus on the Damian Lillard side of things. Could we see him go to New Orleans, Philadelphia? What are your thoughts, Nick, in terms of Damian Lillard? He posted like a Nipsey Hussle and lyric as well after the Game 6 loss. Do you think that he has to leave Portland and, I guess, lose the loyalty moniker that we've always associated Dame Dollar with?
I'm not sure that he will. So whether or not he needs to, I mean, I have made my position clear on many other issues and be like, I don't understand why you don't try to put yourself in a situation where you achieve the best of the best. And it's easy for me to say that I'm not in these positions, but if I was Damian Lillard, and I would be yearning for a ring, I would be yearning to I don't know, just have my competitive itch scratched, which is, I want to win the greatest award that there is, which is the NBA championship. And I would try above all things to make that happen. I don't think he will. I think he has stayed loyal to Portland for so long, but that may have been because of Stotts. We'll wait and see. But I think that he does ultimately stay, and I think they try to make as many savvy moves in free agency as possible. And I think people will want to play with Lillard. I mean, the guy oozes confidence. The guy seems so fun to play with, and he elevates people to no end. He can also put on a brilliant show himself. I think he does have that. He's a superstar that does have that level of draw in Portland. That can bring some really good names in free agency. Couple that with a great coach, and you may really find something here. But the chances of that are slimmer than him just going to a team with other superstars. That's the easiest route, especially when you play at the level as Lillard. You see a way forward, but again, I would be, if I was Lillard, I'd be taking a keen look at front office coaching staff rather than players on the court, which may be an opposite approach to what is traditionally done, but I think that may be because Lillard is the team. Lillard will be the team, I think, and if you can couple that with a fantastic front office and coaching staff, then you can find quality players everywhere in this league.
Look, Neil O'Shea, I think, deserves a lot more criticism, and has been probably. It's always the coach that bears the brunt of the blame, and it's why Terry Stotts is leaving. And look, Terry Stotts is a good coach, and I think whether it's in Boston, whether it's in Orlando, obviously with Steve Clipper's departure, which we probably won't have time to touch on as well. I think Terry Stotts is going to be fine. I think he's going to be
Nate Bjorkgren as well is I don't think he hasn't left, but there are talks of him being replaced as well. So
very, very strong. So, and in that sort of sense, maybe Danny Ainge decides to come out of retirement and go to Portland, and maybe that's something that could happen. I honestly think Dame does need to leave, Nick. I don't want to be Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman style about it, but I want to see the best players get a chip. The best players that have given their all to their franchises.
Sure.
Damian Lillard has given his heart, his soul, his blood, his sweat, his tears to Portland. Now it's his time to show a level of selfishness that I think is well deserved to go, you know what, Neil, get me out of here. At the end of the day, maybe his loyalty supersedes his desire to have success, like you've sort of alluded to, Nick. And, it different priorities, different strokes for different folks. But like you, I think that these superstars deserve to win chips, deserve to put themselves in a situation. Whether he goes to Lakerland, I don't have any clue on the franchises that seem the most likely. I think probably Philadelphia does seem the most likely. It'd be Ben Simmons and every pick under the sun, or New Orleans and their 85 million picks and Brandon Ingram and whoever else. That are him and Zion and Dame. Dear God, that would be so much freaking fun. But in all honesty, Dame needs to do what's best for himself. He's done everything for that franchise. It's sort of like, Batman at the end of Dark Knight Rises and Anne Hathaway, Catwoman's like to him. She's like, you've given everything to this city. And like, it's just, and Dame is Christian Bale as Batman. It's just like, not everything.
Not everything.
Oh, yeah. It's just like, Dame, come on, dude. You don't have to like jump on this giant bomb for this franchise. You're already the best player in the history of the Portland Trailblazers, even if you were to leave today. So, Dame, hopefully he does his thing. And I guess I'll put to you, Nick, before we move on to the next topic. You've got a guy, in your own franchise. Who do you think is more likely out of Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal to leave their respective franchises?
I think Beal's more likely than Lillard.
Okay.
Which is, painful. But that being said, he didn't get traded in the offseason. In the midseason, where I really thought that was going to happen. Terry Stotts leaving could have changed his mind, for sure. Because I have no doubt that they wouldn't have done this without Lillard saying, yeah, okay, maybe it is time to move on. He has that level of sway in Portland. But I think this is a move to try and instill confidence in Lillard. Being like, listen, major shakeups are going to happen. They would have had their postseason debrief. We're going to make this work, and obviously they're going to try and everything under the sun. And ultimately, I think that's enough to keep Lillard. I don't think he's going anywhere, despite what we have said and many others. Because I agree with you that he does need to leave. I think Bradley Beal needs to leave. I just want these guys to be in the best situation for them. But I honestly think that Lillard's compassion to the team and to not cheapen rings, which is a silly thing to say, but I truly think that he would think that if he moves to a team, it would cheapen his ring. He wants one at Portland if he can. He wants to be the man that brings players to Portland.
Yeah, when we look back on it at the end of the day, though, Nick, what goes next to your resume
That's right.
is championship.
We don't care.
But
he's not doing it. He's not doing it for everyone else. He's not doing it for his legacy. He's doing it for him. And that's ultimately what he will do. What is best for him, what he thinks is best for him. And if that is staying in Portland, and I think he believes that, using my super psychiatric powers, I truly think he will stay in Portland. He is a Portland lifer. We probably said the same thing for Russell Westbrook in OKC, though. So we'll see how things go now that Stotts is gone. Maybe that was the
glue. Funnily enough, it was Dame that caused Russ to leave, and now it could be Joker doing the same thing to Damian Lillard. So it'll be fascinating to see. And I guess, Nick, it sort of leads in nicely. We're sort of chatting about small markets, Jokic. We're talking about the Portland Trailblazers. I put to you, the NBA needs to embrace small market players and small market teams, the ones that are outside LA and the like.
I mean, it's fun when the underdog sort of comes through, like it's always fun when you see these, it's in every sport, you get your giants of the clubs, your AFLs in Collingwood and Essendon, Richmonds, and EPL, your Man City, Man City's recent, but Man U's, Chelsea's. It's always fun to see them die and fail in every aspect. And the same goes for basketball, It was funny seeing the Knicks lose in against the Hawks at MSG. It was great to see the Celtics, every New England dude just losing their fucking minds.
LeBron.
It was great. Yeah, exactly. The Lakers.
Saucering in Cancun, yeah. LeBron.
Exactly. Like, as much as I love LeBron, it is tremendous to see the Suns do what they do. But that doesn't happen if there aren't these sort of... if they're not... that doesn't happen if these big markets aren't shoved down our throats to the extent that they are. They're always talked about. Obviously, all the media covers them, or mainstream media does. We talked about them a crap load. And so... there's this endearing quality about these small market teams, and as a small market man myself, I know. But I don't know if they should embrace it, because it can diminish that fairy tale story, I think. if they're like talked about and talked up a bit. So it's a bit like David. It's this David and David and Goliath thing.
And I think in that sense, they're not even marketed that way. It's all from the Lakers. It's just like, well, the Lakers lost because they were injured. It wasn't the Suns won because Devin Booker had, one of the most incredible games a young player has ever had, at Staples Center, channeling inner Kobe, as he sort of put himself. I think that the NBA needs to realize that we are now, heading into a new age of basketball. Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Devin Booker. These are the superstars that they now need to embrace. Giannis, they've been terrible at marketing Giannis as, a face of the league, despite of his popularity internationally. And the same with Luka. They need to realize that now, and look, Ben Simmons as well, our Aussie brethren. Joel Embiid is a native of Cameroon. So I think that the league needs to go beyond LeBron, the Lakers, and start to realize that the players themselves are marketable. Like Trae Young, they're there for the attention. I think that some of it is just the talking head BS that we sort of just get, and it's just so much easier to look at it from and sort of feed the masses, so to speak. But the layman person that switches on ESPN or SportsCenter or whatever, it's like when we watch, like, say, the AFL, and one thing I love about the AFL is that they cover the sport rather than covering, the teams and, whatever else it is. It's about the craft itself. It's about the sport. It's about the game, the beauty of the game, the beauty of the players within that game. I don't think the NBA and its shareholders have done the best job of doing that. When you have, like, Shaqtin' a Fool, when you have, Charles Barkley forgetting who plays for what team, not knowing, some of the best players, not knowing how to pronounce some of the players' names. Yeah, it's funny and whatever, but these are going to be the global superstars. And if you're not, as the NBA right now, doing your due diligence to start to market and hype the hell out of these young superstars, then you're going to rapidly lose popularity, because once LeBron's gone, KD's gone, James Harden's gone, all these guys that are into their mid to late 30s, then you have a base that is bereft of knowledge of how great Nikola Jokic has been, and this individual season that he has had is something that no big man has ever done before. Trae Young and what he is doing as a villain within New York, what Devin Booker is doing, I feel like I'm not seeing a lot about it, and I consume a heap of media when it comes to basketball as well. So I do think that there needs to be a better job done, because it's all there right in front of you. You just gotta take it, and you're sort of talking about the EPL as well. How great was it, the Leicester City? It's the great story in our lifetimes of the EPL. A giant being taken down by the little guy, and that's what sport is about. It's about the narratives. It's about the stories. It's about the players. It's about everything beyond it. And I think that it's rich and ripe for consuming and for broadcasting out there for everyone to enjoy. They just need to do a better job of it. And I think that that's something, niche media does a good job at. OTG Basketball, us,
for sure.
All these different podcasts that are out there. But the national landscape, you watch SportsCenter, you watch ESPN, you watch First Take, all this sort of stuff. It's like, what is the storyline of the Suns' success from the LeBron angle? What is and it's frustrating. It's just like, well, the Suns are freaking incredible. Monty Williams and what he has done with this franchise, and the fact that 10 years later, him and Chris Paul have come together and won their first round together is an amazing story. And seeing that content is what needs to be put onto our timelines, rather than all this regurgitated BS that we see day after day after day. It shows a level of like a lack of expertise from the people that are given the platform to do what they do, and that's a real strike on them.
Well, I'm curious to know how other American sports are covered as well, because does baseball?
It's all like Boston. It's all like Red Sox, Yankees. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so like I don't follow these. I don't follow, like, even NFL. Like, is NFL treated the same? Like,
NFL does a really good job. That's one sport, and you make a good point with that, Nick. The Kansas City Chiefs. Like, Kansas City isn't New York. It's not the New York Jets. They have Patrick Mahomes, one of the great young superstars in the history of their sport. And he's not playing, in New York or LA or whatever, but they're able to. And Tom Brady's playing for the Buccaneers or whatever wherever the hell that is, somewhere in off Florida. And it's just like, you have the players are the product themselves. You have everything there to be able to go, let's just make it for everyone. I should be, reading content that are headlines of Luka Doncic and what he does day after day after day. Nikola Jokic. I don't understand how it's like the game itself is as top heavy as it's ever been. We're going to talk about the best player in the NBA pretty soon, and it's going to be a discussion we could have had for this entire podcast, because it is that stacked and heavy right now, with talent that is aging, with talent that is up and rising. So the NBA needs to put up or shut up, because it's in a precarious state of affairs. Because if we see, I don't know, Utah versus Atlanta in the finals, how are they going to market that? Again, it's unlike Atlanta or whatever, but they need to start doing it sooner rather than later, because it's not just going to be LeBron, Steph, LeBron, Steph, LeBron, Steph, LeBron, Steph, LeBron, Steph, LeBron, Steph, KD, Steph. Like, it's just not going to be that way.
I think they're pandering. They're pandering to a national audience that I guess may not be basketball fans, and this is sort of where I was getting at. Like, I wonder how they, other sports in America are marketed, because I see a lot of First Take, a lot of the Herd. They all do football stuff as well. These are US sports. They do all US sports. So maybe the fan that is watching these are casual basketball fans, and they don't care about Utah, they don't care about Phoenix. They want to know about the big clubs and the big names, and that's where they're going to lose money if they start covering these other good teams, which may intrigue others, but people won't care. Luka does get shoved down your throat.
People won't care because they haven't allowed us to care. That's the thing.
Yes, I agree. There needs to be a complete, shift. That's why smaller, like you said, these sort of niche companies like your, like OTG do a better job, because they are not governed by the viewers that they're going to lose in LA for not talking about the Lakers. They're not governed by that. It's not such a massive deal. It's bad. It is, because you do have such brilliant talent on these small market teams. I mean, the whole point of the draft is to give these small market teams chances, and yet you always talk about, when the Knicks and the Lakers weren't good. I mean, I'd be curious. I guess the Golden State Warriors were banging, so they had that.
And look, they've done it before. They've had LeBron James in Cleveland and turned into one of the great superstars, and the way that they're trying to shove Zion down our throats. And look, we all love Zion, but the amount of national TV covered games that the New Orleans Pelicans got this year was a little bit laughable in comparison to teams like Memphis and Atlanta, and even Denver for that respect. But I guess we'll stick on the sort of the talent route of things, Nick. And a topic that I did allude to and sort of tease a little bit in our discussion there is the title of best player in the NBA is up for grabs.
Is it, Jack? Is it?
Oh, at least the LeBron standing for Nick Busick is coming out again.
No, I mean, I get sucked into this every year, every series with LeBron James. First few games are tricky, dicey, and be like, oh, he doesn't look himself. Is this the season? And he always proves me wrong. But he's out of the playoffs now, and he didn't prove me wrong, because he looked awful. He looked gassed.
Bang.
They had the least rest in the NBA, them in Miami. Maybe that's a point. I don't know if I'm going to give that too much.
Denver are doing okay right now.
Exactly.
So...
Like, there wasn't too much difference. I'm not going to give that too much, airtime. He looked bad. So I can only assume, it's this old adage of never bet against LeBron until he gives you a reason not to. Is this the reason that we've been waiting for? And I might just, next season might be a wash, because the season before last, when they didn't even make the playoffs, we were having the same conversations again, and then we all shut up.
36 years old though, Nick. It's different from being 34 even.
That's right. And no Anthony Davis, obviously. And we saw it last season. LeBron James leaned a lot on Anthony Davis to get through those opening rounds, to get rid of the quote unquote shit teams. But the bad it's just unfortunate they came against this Phoenix team, really. And so maybe that is up for grabs. I mean, he's been the MVP every year for the past 20 years, LeBron James, personally. But it doesn't mean that he's the best player. It doesn't mean that he is the most. Obviously, he doesn't win MVP because he doesn't have the best statistical season. I think Kevin Durant, certainly, if he can lead this Brooklyn Nets team, will take that crown. I don't even think anyone is close. I know you put out that tweet stating the case for Kawhi Leonard. Not yet, Jackie boy. Not yet. If they can get past the Mavs, that's 3-3 right now, isn't it?
Yeah, tomorrow. By the time this is out, the game will probably be over. And I called it on the last pod.
I
put it out there.
And I said that Dallas would not lose a game in Dallas, and fuck, they lost both of them. They were 3-2. They were 2-1 up when we last spoke. And then they lost both games in Dallas and won the one in
First
LA.
time ever, by the way, that a series no one has won the first 6 games on home court, which is truly insane. Insane.
I clearly don't know what I'm talking about, but if they can get past Dallas, I mean, we're talking first round of the playoffs here, Jack, and sure, he absolutely torched the Mavs in their last game. 44 points or something like that in tremendous shooting. Great, he turned it on. We've also seen him flake out last year, for example. This series, it's not enough. It's not enough for me to say that he's on par with Kevin Durant as the best player. Kevin Durant, Jack, that name itself brings about this weight, and maybe. I mean, Kevin Durant is just turning it on in this postseason. He doesn't need to. And this is what the greats do. They don't start... This is why I think LeBron James looks so bad. Because they don't start in the first round. Because if they start in the first round, they're not going to have the steam to propel them into the finals. And Kevin Durant knows that right now.
A part of me disagrees with that because Kevin Durant has treated every game like it's his last. And I think that this Nets team has done a good job of that. I think Kawhi hasn't done a good job of that. I think he's sort of, risen to the moment at times. And look, there's a discussion, Nick, where, his opposing foe in Luka Doncic could be the best player. Who knows? Dallas could go on a magical, Dirk Nowitzki 2011 run and lead them to the final.
I'm hoping for it.
Nikola Jokic, what he is doing right now, he's got Austin Rivers and Facundo Campazzo next to him. And he's dragging them to levels of success that is just unheralded. Joker should be there. If Giannis leads the Bucks to the finals, then, he's won multiple MVPs. I think that there's not enough being talked about. And look, I will besmirch him probably quite a bit on Twitter over the next couple of games, so I'll have to eat my own words in certain respects, but it is stacked right now. And the reason why I think Kawhi Leonard is up there is because the ability to just find and create his own shot, I think the only player that does it better than him is Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant has the capabilities because I think his handle is better. I think he's a greater level scorer, and I think he's also better at getting to the rim. I just think he's the best pure scorer, best, all-round skill set when it comes to the offensive game than anyone we've ever seen. Better passer than Kawhi Leonard as well. And I think he just has a sense for the occasion that few have.
I've never seen Kevin Durant go missing in a game. I cannot say the same thing. I literally cannot remember. I've seen him have bad shooting games, but he doesn't go... he doesn't shoot 20%,
today was a bad game for him, and he still shot nearly 50% from the
48% from the field.
29 and...
That's what I mean. And this is what I was saying when Paul George went to OKC, and my brother was asking, how's he going? He's a massive OKC fan. And I showed him a game, and he went 0 for 9. And I'm like, superstars don't do that. They do not have donut games. And everyone was super high on Paul George, and I'm like, this guy is a great player. He's not He can't have these games, and Kawhi Leonard
he's
doesn't
not
have.
in that.
Kawhi Leonard doesn't have those games. I should say he doesn't have that level of game. But superstars also don't go missing, and that is something that Kevin Durant just doesn't do. And I think that he is just on a tier higher than anyone else in the league. Jokic for this season has been that for sure, but it's one season, Jack. You show me he can do this for the next 3 seasons.
Joker did it last year as well in the postseason, Nick. His postseason record, if you go to B-Ball Ref right now, he might have the greatest offensive, efficiency in finals history for a guy of his infancy. The reason why I wanted
He's
to
only
stay on
26.
KD,
He's only 26 as well. That's important because he's
very
younger
important.
than me, Jack, and that depresses the shit out
The one
of me.
thing I want to stay with KD as well, Nick, because it always... I don't think we sort of think back and hark back to it enough that the question marks that we had heading into the season about Kevin Durant, coming off the most serious injury that you can have in sports. And he has come... And while, yes, he played only 30 regular season games or whatever, he's shown a level of efficiency and propensity that it's just we discount the fact that he had the most serious injury that you can have in sports. And it's just the level of expectation that we have. It's just well, can Kevin Durant be top 10 Dirk Nowitzki all-star level? He's playing all NBA best player. We're having a discussion about the best player in the league, and Nick is making a very clear case for him that he has to be that. And I also do think that defensively, I got blocked by a couple of people because I was just you guys are idiots if you're not watching basketball and seeing what Kevin Durant is doing defensively. Tonight, he was incredible defense. He's been incredible in the postseason, in the absence of Jeff Green as well, and obviously, losing LaMarcus Aldridge as another backline 5 player. He's playing a lot of 5. He's guarding Jason Tatum. He's playing incredible basketball on the defensive end of the floor. And look, that's why I sort of look at him and Kawhi as 1A, 1B, because Kawhi still has that as well. And there are possessions where he makes Luka look silly. He's just I'll have the ball now, please. Thank you very much. KD can't do that, but KD is an amazing rim protector. Still a pretty good isolation player, not the best isolation player ever. I think Kawhi is, maybe, Scottie Pippen, you could probably throw in there, and Tony Allen. But yeah, it's a fascinating discussion to have, and I think Joker might be in this conversation, in 12 months' time. I think he's maybe a slight tier below, but the great thing about this postseason, Nick, is that by the time it is done, we could be discussing and saying that Devin Booker belongs in a conversation of top 10 players, because Trae Young elevated to his game in a way that people imagine. I love playoff basketball because this is where names are made. This is where you put your name into the sun. This is where it's just you know what? I belong in the lights. Put my name up there. And Kevin Durant's done it time and time again with finals MVPs aplenty, as has Kawhi Leonard. Can the Joker do it? Can he lead a depleted Nuggets team and lead them to a Cinderella run? It really excites me, and I think I like having this conversation as a fun thing rather than being it's KD, no one else.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remain objective about the fact that there's like we mentioned when we were talking about the small market team, there's so everywhere around the NBA right now, and LeBron James almost waning a little bit in his age leaves the crown open for someone else in a way that I think it's more open than it has been ever before. I
agree. I 100% agree with that. I don't think it's a coincidence, Jack, that after his stint at, or even this season he joined Golden State, Kevin Durant was talked in the same vein as LeBron James as being, the greatest player in the league.
Let's not forget, he took the crown. That pull-up 3 that he put in LeBron's face, that's just I'm the best player in the league now, my dude. And then obviously the injury happened and everything sort of went from there. But Kevin Durant was the best player in the game at that point in time, and everyone needs to remember that.
It's no coincidence that happens after he spends a year with Draymond Green as well. The defense that guy taught him. Kevin Durant was not bad defensively at OKC, but he was in Defensive Player of the Year contention the first year that he joined Golden State. Amazing. And this is what has elevated that, and that's what elevated the rings help. For sure, rings help. But he took his basketball to a new level joining OKC. The things that he got taught, the system that he was part of, and that speaks volumes of that Golden State era, the greatest team. just the impact that they had on Kevin Durant, he's bringing it to the Nets. It really cemented his defensive acumen, and you're talking about it today. Amazing. Yeah, the guy's great, and I think it's definitely.
It was also before this series started, Nick. Before this series started, he was fourth in the postseason in blocks per game at 2.2. Yeah. So it's like and I think I said this on the buzz as well, and I'll repeat it here because it's certainly a point that's worth reiterating. You expect the person to lose it defensively. I remember lots of great articles about the fact that Kevin Durant's not going to lose anything offensively because he doesn't really rely on his athleticism to be an offensive genius and mastermind because his shot is so fluid, or all of those other things. Defensively is normally where you always lose it whenever you have an injury, is your ability to move laterally. We saw that with Anthony Davis. He could barely move when he was out there. That's a discussion for another day. And AD might be in this conversation as well if he had been healthy too, because he cemented himself after the postseason run as well. A lot of people had him as like the second best player in the league. I'm like, really? And I'm like, well, he's still like a real gap, and not a gap. I just think that like you could make an argument for 8 guys to be the best player in the NBA right now, and I wouldn't sneeze at you and say, nah, you're completely wrong, mate. There is a case for so many players, and whether KD solidifies that, whether Kawhi sort of just like, you know what, I won a couple of Finals MVPs myself here, my dude. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. This postseason is going to be rewriting history in a lot of different ways and rewriting futures in a lot of different ways too.
I'm not sure if the bucket is as deep as 8, Jackie boy, but I mean, I've just made my case for Kevin Durant. Jackie boy, shall we move on? Boston and the Lakers have regressed after their 2020-21 seasons. Jack, I mean, the Lakers obviously a big disappointment. Injuries playing a factor. The Celtics as well, sort of. I think the Celtics get a little bit of a pass because they came across the Brooklyn Nets, but I'm not sure if that should be the case. What's your take on this one?
Look, I think that you can make it. This isn't maybe a fact for both, but I'll go wiki because I still think that, like, you can make the argument for injuries and the like, but I also do think that the roster construction of both teams, whether you want to put that to the GMs, whether you want to put it on coaching, I don't put it on coaching for Frank. Sometimes with rotations, I do, just incessantly playing Andre Drummond and not playing Marc Gasol and not playing AD at the 5. Now, that for me is probably, whereas Brad Stevens, I don't think, it's the reason why he's now somehow the GM of the team. That was just a weird day.
That was wild. The day after it happened as well, they got kicked out. Yeah. It's like, holy crap! Oh god, what a week.
Kyrie Irving broke Boston. It was
nice.
Perfect comeuppance for Boston and for Marcus Smart and for Marky Mark Wahlberg. But to stay with Boston, I guess Kemba Walker. That is a gaping hot. That's a gaping contract you have on your roster right now. It's going to be like, well, what do I do here? Because right now, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they are your nucleus. They are Paul George, Kawhi Leonard 2.0. And Jason Tatum, is playing a level of basketball that is MVP caliber. And Jaylen Brown, is a perfect, 1A, 1B, to that as well. Marcus Smart is going to want a payday. Robert Williams says he's going to be healthy long term. There's a lot of young pieces on that roster. And are you going to go next season and be like, okay, let's take a little bit of a gap here, figure out the salary cap a little bit. Do we want to keep Evan Fournier? But I think that my expectations for them was to be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Kemba Walker to, at least get back to some modicum of form. He said, he wasn't in as much pain as he was in the bubble. So now is it just that he's not a great basketballer anymore? And, he has to get shipped back to like, say, OKC for Al Horford and, you throw some picks the way of Sam Presti. I don't know, but I do think that there is roster construction issues there because I don't think they understood that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown will be this good this quickly. If you put young players around them rather than sort of like solid vets like, a Tyler Johnson, a Jeff Green, these sort of guys that sort of provide you a level of steadiness and consistency, It's rookies are unfounded. Rarely do we ever see, Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith are going to be like contributing to postseason winning basketball. It just doesn't happen. And Robert Williams, obviously in his second season, is great, and he's going to get some semblance of a payday sooner rather than later as well. So there are things happening there. Regressing, maybe a little bit. The Lakers, I think their roster construction, and we sort of talked about it initially. The last year, it was just like, where's the 3-point shooting around LeBron? It's like, big, and then KCP. Like, where's the 3-point shooting around LeBron? Whenever LeBron has had success, it's been surrounded by, Kyle Korver. It's been surrounded by all these sort of dudes that know how to shoot a 3-ball. J.R. Smith. That's the LeBron model. But he obviously has AD next to him now, and it's sort of been molded into sort of like 1-2 sort of, LeBron isn't going to be young forever. And I think that the way having, Marc Gasol, Andre Drummond, and Montrezl Harrell all being, you got 3 roster spots being taken up by big guys that contributed nothing in the postseason there. Whereas JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard at least sort of gave you like their role player consistency and gave you like 5-10 minutes, and then AD is like, okay, I can play center now. Right now, I think that they need to overhaul a little bit. And like, look, Kyle Kuzma, despite the fact that he thinks he's taken some big steps forward, my dude, you're not worthy of that $14 million contract. KCP on a 4-year, $80 million, 3-year, $60 million, 240, a $20 million per annum contract. I don't know. I don't really give a shit about KCP, to be honest. I just think that there's a construction there. What are they going to do now? Should they have gone all in on Kyle Lowry? Probably. I think that could have certainly helped them, and I think given them, a level of success and a level to lean on, another guy in the rotation to actually rely on and handle the basketball a little bit, hit the 3-ball really, really well. Maybe they do go after him in the offseason. But I do think it is a step back because LeBron isn't getting any younger. I think the best version of, the best opportunity for this team, Anthony Davis is an injury-prone player. Yes, a lot of them might be fluky and unlucky injuries, but the nature of being injury-prone is that it happens regularly. It doesn't matter the nature of the injury, and it matters on the regularity of it. And I think that the one thing that teams around the league do when they have those players, Kyrie Irving's kind of that, Kevin Durant's kind of that, James Harden has become that, unfortunately, is that the way that the Nets handle it is that you build a roster around those guys. And look, you've got, Joe Harris, you've got Tyler Johnson, you've got Mike James, Spencer Dinwiddie's still there even though he is injured. You've got Blake Griffin. You need to have players around them. And I think Rob Pelinka, Magic Johnson's telling him to do stuff on Twitter, even though he's the one that quit on the team. He's telling Anthony Davis what to do as well. Magic Johnson, I think he just quit the Lakers so he could just jump back on Twitter.
100%.
And make
100% he did. Because he would have got that first fine and be like, I can't do this. Like, I can't express myself. What is this shit? And then he's gone. 100%.
And I mean, he doesn't really... It doesn't really provide much, like listing 15 MVP candidates and 9 possible championship contenders. It's like, all right, like Magic, we get what you're saying, my dude. A Magic Johnson podcast would be so boring because it'd be enjoyable listening to him speak, but it'd be boring the content itself.
The 230 character tweets, it was definitely to stop Magic Johnson from tweeting paragraphs. That is 100% why it's there.
Basically. I think it's 280 now, but you are 100% right. I think they might have increased it just for Magic. But yeah, I think that there is an argument that can be made about it, Nick. And the off season for these two teams is probably the two that I'll be watching the most. Yes, it's the big markets, and we're talking about them again, but we're talking about them in the end. We don't have them in the A block; we got them in the D block. That's right. So I think that Boston and LA are going to have intriguing off seasons. Rob Pelinka, how is he going to build around AD, LeBron, and the like? And what is new front office GM Brad Stevens going to do? What coach is he going to hire to get the most out of his team? I think there are going to be some wholesale changes to that team. I think it's going to be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Everyone else, you're on the market.
100%. And I feel like it may be silly to say, but I think the only person of the Lakers that I wouldn't be trading is Caruso. Just because he's the lifeblood of that team, man, and defensively he is incredible. But I see too many bigs on the Lakers. I see not enough bigs on the Celtics. I mean, I say no bigs on the Celtics, I should say, which was a massive.
Hey, Grant Williams and Semi Ojeleye, give them some love.
Oh God, no. I mean, I could say maybe a lot of trades between those two teams, which will be fascinating. Obviously, separate conferences, so you're more inclined.
It'd be interesting because I honestly can't remember, because of the history with those two franchises, you normally see, Greg Popovich has always said, I'll never trade with the Lakers or whatever, because there's just a vendetta against certain teams.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest, Andre Drummond would make sense on Boston, and, you throw Langford in Laker Town, it makes a little bit more sense. Look, again, these are just random hypotheticals that we are seeing, but there will be moves. This offseason is fascinating for many, many a reason. And, what is happening in Boston and LA is just one of them. Portland was spoken about. Even the teams that will eventually go out. What does Brooklyn do if James Harden's absence forces them to lose against Milwaukee and Miami?
I think there's going to be. I think they're probably going to push again for a championship bout.
No, Nick. Maybe he gets back to his form. He's I don't know. I don't really care about Tyler Hero. I care more about Jack Harlow's song Tyler Hero. I'm a big fan of Jack Harlow.
It will certainly be a big season for a lot of teams. I am not sure there will be a team because even fringe playoff teams, your Bulls are going to be wanting to push for another playoff. Obviously, we are. Who are the bad teams going to be next year? I guess OKC, standard. Timberwolves will probably not want to be bad, but they will be.
Stephen A. Smith has already bringing up the fact that Portland should go after him and Lillard and such. And so, I think
if there's one guy that has to leave,
he might not.
It's Karl Anthony Towns. He has to leave.
We'll wait and see how it all pans out. But the off season we'll be covering it plenty.
Yeah.
But the playoff basketball has been goddamn fun as well, and it's been a lot of content at OTG Basketball as well. Just podcast. And if you want more, I guess, on the Boston Celtics and their situation, make sure you check out Celtics Live. They're covering. They're the only Boston Celtics fans that I actually like, and the only podcast that has any Celtics content that I listen to. So check it out.
Well said, Jackie boy. And no other place other than JBT will you find in the middle of playoffs where you find a way to talk about the Wizards and the Timberwolves. Only on JBT, Jackie boy. All right.
We get the small markets here, love.
That's right. All right. That just about does it for another week. So we'd just like to say thank you for tuning in to Just Ball Things. As always, if you're catching us on podcasts, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast, we will be there. 5 stars. The camera is there. There we go. 5 stars if you are listening to us on Apple. Helps us out a bunch to leave that rating and review. If you are catching us on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for OTG Basketball, and hit that notification bell as well, so you know when fresh content comes out by OTG Network. Remember, it's you guys that make the show great, so we appreciate any and every post heading our way. So until next week.
Keep bowling, superstars.